Today on Talk Fulton, important information for Fulton voters who plan on casting ballots in the 6th Congressional District runoff. Fulton's Registration and Elections Director is here with the polling location changes. And the decision has been made on when voters will elect a new commissioner to fill the District 4 commission seat left vacated by the late Vice Chair Joan P. Garner. I'm Shania Chavis Rucker, and Talk Fulton starts right now. Welcome to Talk Fulton, everybody. Today we are talking about what many people in our country are talking about, and that is the 6th Congressional District special runoff election. Now, this election is between Karen Handel and Jon Ossoff, and Election Day is Tuesday, June 20th. However, early voting underway in Fulton County, May 30th through Friday, June 16th. Rick Barron is Fulton's Registration and Elections Director. Sir, welcome back to Talk Fulton.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Rick, let's get to it. First things first, there seemed to be a lot of confusion with voters who thought they could vote in this Congressional District 6 election. How can residents verify their congressional district number before heading to the polls?
Voters can go to the Secretary of State's My Voter page to check their congressional district. Also, all of the voters up in the Congressional District 6 will be receiving a head of household mailing that went out on May 22nd into the mail.
All right, and so now let's talk about early voting for this particular race. I mentioned the May 30th through June 16th dates. What times are polls open, and are there any weekend voting opportunities?
The early voting polls will be open from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and both Saturdays during that period from May 30th to June 16th will be open from 8:30 to 7 as well.
And where will there be early voting in Fulton County? I think we've got a list, and I can help you if you miss any. What are some of those early voting locations?
Alpharetta Library, the OC Library, the Milton Library, the North Annex, the East Roswell Library, the Roswell Library, and
There's one more missing.
Yeah, there's...
I think it's on the screen. I think we got them all there for you. Now tell us, what should residents bring with them, Rick, when they head to the polls to go vote?
Everyone needs a photo identification. There are a number of acceptable photo IDs, from the driver's license, military ID, passport, tribal ID, military ID, any government employee issued ID as well.
Bottom line, they need their ID to vote.
Correct.
Yeah. Now let's switch and talk about the June 20th election day. I understand that there have been some polling locations changes for that day. Let's show voters some of those. Well, wait, before we do that, tell me what's going on and how have you notified voters? How did we get here?
The polling places that were changed for the June 20th election were changed because the school district, Fulton County Schools, had a number of renovations that needed to be done in these schools. This election originally wasn't on the calendar, and usually when schools have the renovations, they undergo those renovations in the summers, and the elections department usually isn't on their mind when they're making these schedules. So it's understandable, and it's something that we can't avoid. So what we do is consolidate them with other precincts in the area.
And so as we show some of those polling location changes for June 20th, what I hear you saying is basically when we were planning for the election day, that was one day, but then here comes the runoff, and some of these locations had other things to come up such that we could not use some of these places?
Correct, and 3 of the location changes happened prior to the April 18th election. But we don't like to change, if something's going to be used for an election, we don't like to make a change again before the runoff if we don't have to. So most of the most of the 12 locations, 9 of them are only for the June election. They're temporary changes. 3 of them were prior to April's election, and we're just trying to be consistent for both elections and keep them that way.
Now, Rick, you've been eating and breathing this information, but a lot of people, they don't have the information. So how can they get this information? And what did you all do again to get it out?
We sent a head of household mailing to all of the registered, or to the households with registered voters in the 6th Congressional District. The voters in those households, if you're registered at the house where the head of household mailing arrives, that your election day polling location will be indicated on that letter. The other thing is that the early voting locations that we talked about earlier will also be on that letter. And I encourage as many people as possible to vote early. We usually have a much smoother election day when more people vote early.
And even with or without these polling locations, you all always recommend people to just go to the website or go to the Secretary of State's website to figure out where you should be, because things just change all the time.
Correct. And the other thing that we did was we ordered for the people that are going to have a new polling location for this election. We also on April 28th ordered precinct cards which will indicate the district and the new polling place on them. Those, as of today, we haven't received those back from the Secretary of State. As soon as we get them in, we will put them into the mail as well.
Okay, and by the time this is airing, by this airtime, they probably will have come in and are already sent out. Now, bottom line, Rick, if people didn't get this information and they show up at another location, can they still vote?
They can still vote. It is required by Georgia. A voter is required to vote in their assigned polling location on Election Day. So if there is enough time to get to the other polling location, you should, as a voter, go to your assigned location. If you do show up at the wrong location, you can't get to the other location, you can request a provisional ballot.
All right, well, Rick, sit tight. When we come back, we want to talk about the election to fill the Fulton Commission District 4 seat. Stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We've been talking with Fulton's Registration and Elections Director, Mr. Rick Barron, about this election season. So, Rick, we've already addressed the 6th Congressional District Special Runoff Election. Let's now talk about the upcoming county election to fill the Fulton County District 4 Commission seat left vacated by the passing of Vice Chair Joan Garner. So, the Board of Registration and Elections, as I understand it, has decided on the date for the District 4 election. Tell us when that will be.
That'll be November 7th with the municipal general election.
Okay, so November 7th with the municipal election. You're talking about the mayor's races and
all the city elections that will be held around the county. That's their regularly scheduled election that happens every 4 years.
And like in other races, there will also be a qualifying period. Has that been determined yet, or is that also the same as the municipal races?
The qualifying period will happen the same week as the qualifying races. I believe that's August 22nd to the 26th.
And when we say qualifying race, I guess this is so we're used to talking about this, but for average person out there, the qualifying period is when those who want to run for one of the seats, they have to I guess, qualify through the Secretary of State's page. Is that about right? Or
well, what they'll do for the commission seat is they'll come and qualify in our office.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then the other municipal races, are those in those other jurisdictions, or is that in your office too?
Each individual jurisdiction that will be in that election will handle those qualifying for those candidates.
And now, one of our dear favorites here, the late Vice Chair Joan Garner, she was just reelected in 2016. So will the person running for her seat fill what's, I guess, an unexpired term? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, it'll be unexpired term, and it will run through what would have been her term. That person will fill out her term.
Okay, the remaining of her turn. I got it. Now, one of the other questions is, as you know, as of now, there is a Fulton commissioner who has also filed a declaration of intent to run for another seat in another jurisdiction, which means if in fact they run for that office, they will eventually have to resign their seat on the Fulton County Board of Commissioners. And then, of course, that means that there will need to be an election for that seat as well. When will the Registration and Elections Board determine when that seat will need to be on the ballot?
Well, if that happens, as soon as that person qualifies in that jurisdiction, essentially he has resigned. At that point, then the Board of Registration and Elections will have to meet and call that election. Then some notices will have to be posted or published in the newspaper, and then we'll be able to get the qualifying underway for that. To get that, and we'll hopefully be able to get that on the November 7th ballot as well.
And that's exactly where I was going. And I assume, Rick, because there are funding needs for any election, having both of those county commission seats on the ballot would save taxpayers money?
It will. It would be a great benefit to have both of them on the same day. And so I think that'll be our aim.
I guess one of the other big races on the ballot, we talked about the municipal races earlier, but wow, we're seeing a lot of those signs pop up in the Atlanta mayor's race. So again, remind our residents when the qualifying period is for that, and then again, when that race is on the ballot.
The mayoral race for the city of Atlanta will be on November 7th, and the qualifying period is near to the end of August. I believe it's August 22nd through the 26th. That's a Monday through Friday.
And Rick, you know, we've got a lot of eyes on us. I said at the top of the show that the whole country is watching because of the interest in that 6th congressional district race. Anything else your team is trying to do? I know every election is important to you all, but anything in addition that you all are trying to do at this point just to make sure that we are ready?
Well, we have to execute that election the way we do any of the other elections. And I think what will help this time around is that we'll have an election as opposed to April, where we have, you know, one database and we don't have voters in certain jurisdictions having to check in more than once. So I anticipate a smooth election day and a smooth election night based on those factors. And I think we'll perform well, and whatever attention we garner should be positive.
And you just mentioned about the incident a few months back. That obviously had nothing to do with, that was outside of your control, but sounds wonderful that folks can now go to one precinct and vote on one ballot. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yeah, we had in Johns Creek and Roswell, voters had to, even if they went to the one polling place, they had to check in for 2 different elections and vote on 2 different sets of voting machines. So it was something that you know, voters weren't used to doing. Our poll workers weren't used to doing that. And you know, when you have a line and you know, and you have limited space, it can be a little chaotic. And you know, but we made it through it. We had results come out a little bit later, but you know, I think in the end, everything worked out. We had accurate results come out, and that's what matters in the end.
That's right. And so, okay, as we wrap up this particular segment, Rick, we just cannot tell it enough. Let's give those final reminders again. IDs, check your voter card, all of that. Give us one more set of reminders about what residents and voters can do to make the process a lot smoother on Election Day.
Well, I would check your mail for the head of household mailing. If you're in a precinct where you've had a precinct change, you will also get a precinct card in the mail. You should also check the My Voter page if you have any question as to whether you live in the 6th Congressional District. If you're outside that district, you are not qualified to run. I know there are a lot of people in Fulton County that want to get out and vote in that election, but they do live outside the 6th Congressional. And the other thing, we use a slogan, know before you go. Voters really need to know where they're going to vote before they go. And I would also encourage voters to vote early. They get to pick where they want to vote and when they want to vote, and that's over 17. They have 17 different days they can choose from.
Yes, you have made me into an early voter. I absolutely love it. It's just no hassle, get in, get out. But again, those 12 polling locations, folks, if you are not sure, just please either go to the Secretary of State's website or the Fulton County website, and that's where they can get all the information, right, Rick?
That's correct.
All right. Well, Rick Barron, Fulton's Registration and Elections Director, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time. Keep us posted, and good luck this election cycle.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Well, again, any questions about the upcoming elections, you can visit fultonelections.com or the Secretary of State's website. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay with us. Well, that does it for this edition of Talk Fulton. Special thanks to our guest and a special thanks to you for watching. We invite you to let us know what topics you'd like to see right here addressed on Talk Fulton. You can check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, and of course on Instagram. I'm Shania Chavis Rucker, and we will see you next time.